Good evening, distinguished guests, honorable members of the Knesset, and all those joining us here and around the world. Today, as I stand in this sacred place, a house built upon the faith, endurance, and dreams of generations, I am deeply humbled. This moment is not merely ceremonial, it is profoundly personal. I came here not just as the daughter of a president, but as a woman of faith, a mother, and a believer in the power of unity. In a world too often divided by differences, today we are reminded that faith, when rooted in understanding, can connect hearts more strongly than politics ever could. What we share today goes beyond nations and titles. It's about legacy, it's about humanity, it's about light, a light that continues to shine even in moments of uncertainty. Standing here, in the heart of Israel, I feel the pulse of history, and with it, the unspoken promise that peace, though fragile, is always possible when courage meets compassion. My journey here reflects something I hold deeply, the belief that bridges must be built, not walls of misunderstanding. And those bridges begin with faith, respect, and a willingness to listen, truly listen. Tonight, I ask you to open your hearts, not just your minds. Because what I will share with you is not only about diplomacy or politics, it is about people, families, children, and generations who deserve hope, dignity, and peace. Every step I take in this land reminds me that leadership is not about commanding others, it is about serving something greater than ourselves. So, I invite you to stay with me, for the next few moments, to reflect together, to remember why we are here, and to rediscover the strength that comes when truth and tenderness walk hand in hand. Together, let us renew our commitment, not just to nations, but to one another. Because in the end, the greatest legacy any of us can leave behind is not power, but purpose. Not position, but peace. When I look around this chamber, I see more than walls and flags. I see stories. I see generations who carried faith through fire, who turned hope into history. And standing here today, I am reminded that strength is not always loud, sometimes it is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in purpose. Strength is the ability to remain calm when the world is watching, to believe in peace when others doubt, and to carry dignity even when the path ahead is uncertain. In moments like these, when history and humanity meet, we are reminded that diplomacy is not simply about policies or protocols. It is about people, about hearts that long to be understood and voices that deserve to be heard. True diplomacy begins when we choose understanding over reaction, when we reach out a hand instead of raising one, and when we see that every nation, no matter how small or great, carries its own sacred story worth honoring. Standing in this place, one feels the weight of legacy and the hope of progress. There is a quiet power that lives in the act of coming together, leaders, faiths, and families, united by the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. That power does not belong to any one person, it belongs to all who dare to choose dialogue over division. That is what defines real leadership, the courage to listen, the strength to forgive, and the wisdom to build bridges where none existed before. Every nation, every leader, every soul is tested by time. The true test is not in how loudly we declare our beliefs, but how gracefully we live them. Real strength does not need to shout. It shows itself in patience, in restraint, in the quiet conviction that peace is not weakness but the highest form of wisdom. When one carries that strength into diplomacy, something transformative happens, enemies begin to see each other as humans again, and hope finds a way back into the conversation. As I walked through the halls of this historic building, I felt a profound respect for what it represents, perseverance, identity, and faith that refused to be silenced. It reminds us all that the world's most powerful force is not fear, but conviction, conviction rooted in love for one's people and a desire to see others live in peace. That conviction must guide us all, regardless of where we come from or what language we speak. In the realm of diplomacy, gestures matter. The way we speak, the tone we set, the willingness to listen, these are the true currencies of peace. When we lead with humility, when we acknowledge the humanity in those who disagree with us, we unlock something extraordinary. We allow trust to enter the room. And once trust enters, transformation begins. The bridges built through understanding are stronger than any wall built from suspicion. There are moments in history that define the moral courage of a generation. Today is one of those moments. To stand here, together, is to affirm that unity is stronger than division and that respect for one another's. There are moments in life when our roles converge, when who we are privately meets what we are called to do publicly. Standing here today, I feel that intersection deeply. There is a unique kind of pride that comes from representing both a nation and a family, from carrying the weight of a name while still holding on to the simplicity of purpose that guides the heart. It is a balance between duty and devotion, between the world's expectations and one's own faith in something greater. To be part of a family that serves is not about privilege, it is about responsibility. It is about understanding that every action, every word, carries the weight of a promise, the promise to serve with integrity, to lead with grace, and to remain grounded no matter how high the platform becomes. The bond between parent and child is sacred, and when that bond extends into the realm of leadership, it transforms into something even more profound, a shared vision of what the future should be. I have learned that leadership is not inherited, it is earned every single day. It is tested in moments of doubt, refined in times of challenge, and defined by how one responds to the quiet calls for compassion that echo beneath the noise of politics and power. To stand beside someone whose decisions shape history is both humbling and inspiring. But it also reminds me that every person, no matter how close to power, has a moral obligation to use their influence to uplift others. There is a profound beauty in the balance between strength and humility. I have witnessed that true leadership is not about seeking recognition, it is about giving credit, about creating space for others to shine. It is in the quiet moments, the ones the world never sees, where the real essence of service is revealed. It is in the way one listens to those who disagree, in the way one stands firm for truth even when it's uncomfortable, and in the way one carries faith not as a symbol, but as a source of guidance. In this chamber, surrounded by history and hope, I cannot help but think of the generations who came before us, parents who taught their children to dream, families who sacrificed for freedom, and leaders who dared to believe that unity was possible. That spirit continues to guide us. Family, after all, is the first lesson in leadership. It teaches patience, compassion, loyalty, and strength, the very virtues that define a nation's character. When I look at the faces before me, I see that same story reflected, the story of those who have carried their families' dreams into public service, who have turned personal conviction into collective progress. It reminds us all that what we do here is not about us, it is about those who will come after us. Legacy is not measured by titles or applause. It is measured by the lives we touch, by the hearts we heal, and by the hope we leave behind. Every act of service begins with love, love for one's family, love for one's country, and love for Huma. Faith is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It is invisible, yet it moves mountains. It is deeply personal, yet it binds humanity together in ways that laws and politics never can. Standing here, in this sacred place where history, belief, and destiny converge, I feel that connection profoundly. Faith is not a symbol we wear, it is a light we carry. It reminds us who we are, what we stand for, and how we are called to serve something beyond ourselves. There was a time when faith was seen only as a private matter, something confined to temples and homes. But I believe faith belongs in the heart of every decision we make, not because it divides, but because it unites. Faith gives strength to the weary and wisdom to the powerful. It whispers courage in moments of fear and reminds us that our purpose is not measured by how much we possess, but by how much we give. Walking through this land, every stone tells a story, every prayer left upon the wind carries generations of hope. This is a place where faith has survived exile, where belief has outlived oppression, where light has triumphed over centuries of darkness. It teaches us that no matter how divided the world becomes, the soul of humanity remains connected through belief, in God, in peace, in the possibility of something better. What I have learned through faith is that strength does not come from certainty. It comes from trust, from stepping forward even when the path is not yet clear. Faith teaches humility, because it reminds us that none of us are the center of the universe, we are all threads in a much greater design. And when we honor that design, when we see divinity not only in our own people but in others, we begin to understand what true peace feels like. In a time when the world often uses faith as a reason to separate, we must reclaim it as a reason to unite. Every religion, every belief system, at its core, teaches love, compassion, and respect for life. Those are not foreign values, they are universal truths. The moment we see another person's faith not as a threat but as a reflection of the same divine light, we begin to heal the fractures of the world. There is profound strength in diversity. Different beliefs do not weaken us, they enrich us. When we learn from each other's traditions, when we listen without judgment and speak without arrogance, we build a culture of harmony. That is what makes humanity sacred, our ability to believe differently and still stand side by side in dignity. Faith is also a call to responsibility. It calls us to act with integrity, to lead with compassion, and to make choices that honor the Creator's vision for justice and peace. It reminds those in power that authority is temporary, but righteousness is eternal. It reminds every individual that the smallest act of kindness, the simplest word of truth, is an offering far greater than any monument or speech. When faith enters the heart of leadership, it transforms policy into purpose. Every generation reaches a moment when it must decide what kind of future it wishes to create. That moment is now. The world is changing faster than ever before, technologies evolve, challenges emerge, and societies are constantly reshaped by voices both loud and silent. Yet amid all of that movement, there remains a single constant truth: leadership will always begin in the heart. It is not born from privilege or power, it is born from purpose. And purpose is something each of us must discover for ourselves. To inspire others, we must first be willing to be inspired. We must be open to learning, to listening, to growing through our own imperfections. The leaders who will shape the future are not the ones who speak the loudest, but the ones who see the farthest, those who can imagine a world more compassionate, more just, and more united than the one we know today. The next generation is not waiting to inherit the world, they are already building it. And it is our duty to ensure that the world they inherit is one worthy of their potential. Leadership today demands something deeper than ambition. It requires authenticity. People can feel when a leader speaks from truth and when they do not. The world is hungry for sincerity, for voices that rise not out of self-interest but out of service. We must remind young men and women everywhere that influence is not measured by followers, but by the lives we touch, the kindness we spread, and the courage we show in the face of doubt. Every young person watching, every dreamer listening, must know that they have within them the power to change the world. But that power does not come from anger or ego, it comes from faith, from patience, from the quiet resilience that refuses to surrender even when no one is watching. The most powerful revolutions begin in silence, in the unseen moments of preparation, discipline, and self-belief. The future belongs to those who cultivate strength not to overpower, but to uplift. When we talk about leadership, we often think of podiums and speeches, but real leadership begins long before the spotlight. It begins in the willingness to stand for what is right even when standing alone. It is in the courage to make choices that may not please everyone, but that serve truth and justice. It is in the humility to admit when we are wrong and the wisdom to learn from every mistake. Great leaders are not those who never fall, they are those who rise with grace every time they do. The new generation must also understand that leadership is not about perfection, it is about persistence. It is not about knowing every answer, but about asking the right questions. It is not about being fearless, but about acting with courage in spite of fear. When a young person learns to embrace that truth, they begin to unlock their purpose. And once purpose takes root in the heart, nothing can uproot it. We live in a time when it is easy to feel small in the face of global uncertainty. But the